Alright, y'all, so I have 3 containers right here. All have the same type of content, but the further you go down, the less containers I'm using. So let me just open this up and show you what I mean. So with this first container, I have 1 container that's holding everything, and then I have 2 child containers right here. So this main container, the pink border, is holding the first container that has our heading and our description. And then I have a secondary child container that's holding my 3 card containers. As you see, we have quite a bit of containers. Now the card containers is one thing, depending on what you're creating, you might need this, or you could easily just use the grid widget, or the grid container, to achieve this. But in this scenario, we're not gonna talk about the grids, we're just gonna stay on Flexbox. But essentially you see I have the main container, the pink one, and 2 child containers. If I scroll down, you will see that I have now 1 main container, and then I have just 1 child container that's holding all 3 of the cards. So now I have 1 less container here. But then if I go all the way down here, I literally have no child containers. I just have the main container and then my cards that are holding, their own container. And this is why it's so important to know how to design inside of Elementor so you can use the least amount of containers as possible. So let me show you how I even got to this point. So strolling back up to this first one, like I said, most times people will go ahead and put their heading and their description inside of a container, and then they'll put their other additional information inside of this container. So let's break this down. So this first one, I have a main container going in the direction of column, meaning it's going up and down. And then inside of this up and down column, I want to make sure that I have my heading and description here, and then I want to make sure that that sits on top of this. So most people opt out for this. Now what I would say is just go ahead and get rid of this container that has the heading and description, because you already have your main container going in the direction of column, meaning that any widgets you put on here is going to sit on top of each other in the first place. So a way to do that, if you do have your main column going in the direction of if you have your main container going in the direction of a column, you don't even need this one right here. So what I'm going to do is just pull this out, or sometimes you have to use the navigator. So I'm just going to pull the heading out, and I'm going to pull the text editor out, and then I'm just going to delete this container. And now you see we have what we had here. We don't have this container because it's not needed, because the main container is already going in the direction of column. So that means this widget, this heading widget, will sit on top of this description widget, which will also sit on top of this additional container I have with other content. So that takes care of that one. Now let's just say you actually have, this one. This is where you at. You already removed that main container for the heading in the description because your main container already go in the direction of vertical. Now you have this container. And this container is also not needed because, again, now with Elementor's direction details or settings over here, you don't even need to have all these additional containers if you know how to adjust the percentages on each widget. Let me show you what I mean. So we're gonna try to get this right here. And as you see, even if I close this, they all look the exact same. But this one have no inner widgets. So let me just open this back up, and I'm going to show you what I mean. So this time what we're going to do is we're going to, again, go into this container, this secondary container that's not needed. We're going to just drop these things out. I'm going to take this second card. I'm going to pull it out of that container. And I'm going to do the same thing with the last one. I'm going to pull it out of that container. Don't worry, it's freakishly huge right now. I'm going to fix that. I'm going to now delete that container because we do not need it. Now I'm going to go back to the main container, and for the direction, instead of having it on vertical or column, I'm going to switch it to row. Now immediately you're like, what the heck is going on? This is not what I signed up for. But that's okay, because they also have this wrap feature, and I'm going to make sure I turn on the wrap. And as you see, it took us right back to where we were at square one. But the only difference is now what we're going to do is we're going to take these info cards, because the thing is we want these three things to sit next to each other. So I'm going to go to the first one, and I'm going to change the percentage width to 30%. I'm going to go to the second one, and I'm going to also give it 30%. In the third one, I'm going to also give it 30%. Now, depending on what you're doing, you can edit your width however you would like. The only thing is you need to remember that a container, it has to take up 100% of the width, okay? So whatever you have sitting next to each other, if you're going to have them in a, what am I trying to say? A row type of style, you definitely want to make sure that you play around with your percentages and know what you want. And make sure that the gap in between everything, remember that that does take account into how it equals out to 100%, so just be mindful of that as well. But essentially, as you guys see, we literally don't have any inner containers, but we still got the same effect. If I close this out, you will see now that even though the structure is the same as this, it has all this excess space in there, and we don't want that. We want it to look like they're all in the same section and they're all related to one another. So open up the editor again, and on this container, what you will notice is we have a minimum height of the viewport height of 100%. We do not want that. It's honestly not even needed anymore. So I would just say click this, go back to pixels, and it brings everything together. And to give it space at the top and the bottom so that the proximity is still good, just go to advanced, unlink the padding, and give it top padding 80, bottom padding 80. And now you have that additional space at the top and the bottom without the space in the middle. So again, that minimum height on the section was not needed. Don't worry about that. Honestly, don't ever use that unless you just really need to, or you're trying to get a specific design across. But when you're dealing with your containers and you just have a simple layout like this, never use the minimum height. Just give yourself some padding at the top and the bottom if you want that additional space. And that's pretty much it. That's how you lessen the amount of containers that you have. As you guys see, we went from having 2 to 3 containers to having absolutely no containers, all by using the directions or the items tab over here in the container, and making sure that you have it on either the row or the column, and then you make sure that you are using wrap. So how this basically was able to work is the fact that this right here is 100%. So nothing can sit next to this because this is already 100%. So it's going to wrap down and come to the next one underneath it. This one is also 100%. So anything else beside this is gonna wrap underneath it, and that's exactly what we did with these cards. And instead of it wrapping and having 100%, we just made sure that the cards, because we want them to sit next to each other, have a specific percentage. If that makes sense, let me know. If it doesn't, I'll do another video. If you guys learned something in this video, give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in the next one.